We have spent some time now finding just area of our figures, and some of them were composite figures. Remember, composite figure just means you have more than one figure that's put together, and you have to find the total area. But we are going to now do some more things with area, and more of these will be word problems or working backwards to find some of the missing pieces. And that's what this first one is. So first we've got a trapezoid, and we know the formula for a trapezoid is area equals 1/2, and then times the quantity base 1 plus base 2 times h. And now we just need to fill in the missing pieces to figure out what the height is going to be. We know the area is 171. We have our two bases are given to us in our picture. Remember, it doesn't matter which one you label as base 1 or base 2. And we do not have the height. So this is the equation that we need to solve. Remember, this is really now just algebra, and we need to simplify this. Always combine your parenthesis numbers together if you can. So this gives us a 38 times 1/2, and then times our h. So I'm going to take half of 38, so now we have 171 equals 19 times our h. So we can divide both sides by 19, and we get that our height is 9 feet. On the next one, we need to find the exact and the non-exact answer. So our exact answer will have pi or square root or something like that in our answer. The non-exact will just be a decimal. We are finding the area of a semicircle, and a semicircle is really just half of a circle. If we draw the picture of half of a circle, we know the diameter is 8. That tells us then that the radius is going to be a 4. So the area of a circle, just to begin with, is pi r squared, but because we have a semicircle, we need to take this and divide it by 2 for the semicircle. Now we just need to fill in our values. We have 4 squared times pi, and then we're going to divide that answer by 2. And always deal with your squared first. This is really 16 pi all over 2 equals our area. Now remember, we can simplify the 16 and the 2 first to make it a little bit easier. That means that our exact answer is 8 pi, and this is centimeters squared. I want you now to type that in your calculator and give me the non-exact answer, so a decimal. When you type it in, you should have used your pi button on the calculator. And we get 25.133, and again, that would be centimeters squared, and that's our non-exact answer. On to number 3, now we are getting into our composite figure. So a composite figure, if you notice, has multiple shapes inside. You want to divide up and be able to picture the different shapes. We have a kite, and the only reason I know it's a kite is because I've got my 2 sets of consecutive sides are congruent to each other. And we also have 2 semicircles, but if you notice, the diameters are the same size. Really together, that makes 1 circle, and we have a kite. So to set this up, we want to make sure that we know what our formulas are so we can fill in the pieces that we have, and then that'll help us determine what we are missing. So for a kite, we need our 2 diagonals, and we just multiply those by 1/2. The circle, we need what the radius of those circles are going to be. So in our circle, we need to figure out what this diameter is, and we're going to have to use some different pieces to find that. For the diagonals already in our kite, we have the full length here because this top piece is 16, this is 32. The other diagonal is 30, and this is congruent to it, so that's also going to be a 30. So together, those will give us a 60. So we have 60 times our 1/2, and when we add our 16 plus 32 together, it gives us a 48. So now when we multiply it, I can take half of 48, so we get 24, and then multiply that by 60, and we get 1,440, and this is meters squared for our kite. So we still have to add that to the area of our circle, and that's what we need to work on next. We do have right triangles here. We have 16 and we have 30, so we need to use Pythagorean theorem then to find this hypotenuse of that triangle, because remember, the hypotenuse of the triangle is the diameter of our circle. In my setup, I'm going to label that as my D, so I don't forget that that is the diagonal of my circle. So we've got 16 squared plus 30 squared equals our D squared. And right now, I want you to go through and tell me what is the D value, or the hypotenuse of that circle, going to be. And what I meant was the hypotenuse of the triangle. So go ahead and find that right now. Your first step should have been the 256 plus 900, and that gives us 1,156. When we take the square root of that, then we get 34, and it's exactly 34. So our diagonal up here or the diameter itself, is going to be 34. That means that the radius is half of that. So that gives us 17 for our radius. So when we can come over here, we can take 17 squared, and that gives us 289, and then we still have our pi. So let's go ahead and add that with the 1440, and then our total answer would be 2,347.92 meters squared. Now this is the area of the space that we need to cover, but we need to find out how many buckets of paint that they will need to cover that space. Now each bucket is 375 meters squared, so we need to take our answer and we need to divide it then by 375 meters squared. And when we do that, we get 6.2611 buckets. But if we have that much space that we need to cover, 6 buckets will not be enough. So we need a total of 7 buckets of paint. This school crossing sign question is kind of similar. We need to find the area of this whole sign, and we need to figure out how much metal is going to be left over if we need to make 3 of them, and the space of the metal that we've got is 60 inches by 40 inches. So they're already telling us that we have enough sheet metal to make those signs, but we want to know how much area is left over after we subtract out those 3 signs. In our picture, when you see this, you want to divide it up into the different shapes that we see. We do see a rectangle, which is 15 by 30 because we have base times height, and that's right over here. So there's our base, there's our height, there's our rectangle area. Next, we need to find the area of our triangle, and we need to know it has to have our base, which will be the same base down here as the 30, but the height is the part that we do not know. But if we go straight up and down as 30, we already know this piece right here is 15, so the remainder would also have to be 15. So the height of our triangle is also 15. If we multiply all these together, we get 15 times 15, or that would be 225. When we multiply our 15 times the 30, we get 450 inches squared. So our total area is going to be 675 inches squared just for one sign. Now remember, we need to find 3 signs, so let's multiply that by 3, and that means that our area is going to be 2,225 inches squared of how much we need. So we need to go back up to how much space we have to use. So we are going to take our 60 times the 40, and that gives us that we have 2,400 inches squared. And that's the amount of space that we have with the metal. But we need to find out how much is left over after we take out the pink number right here. So we're going to be taking our 2,400 and we are going to be subtracting our 2,025 from it. And that gives us that we have 375 inches squared left over after we subtract out those 3 signs. For number 5, we have bought a used house, and here is going to be our house. We are going to fence in our new backyard as a triangle shape, and one side is the house. We need to keep our dogs safe from the cars driving by our house, so we need to also put a new fence up, and we also need to reseed because the previous owners had not taken care of their yard. So each side of our fence is going to be 40 feet long. One thing that is not mentioned up above, but we're going to say that our house is 40 feet long in the backyard as well. That means that this is an equilateral triangle and also equal angular, which means all 3 angles in our triangle are 60 degrees. Since we know this about our triangle, when we draw a line straight down the center for our height of our triangle, we know that this other side of 40 is going to be cut in half, and both of those are 20. And we can use those two then to use Pythagorean theorem to find the height of our triangle. Or you could also use the fact that we know it is a 30, 60, 90 triangle then, and we can label our sides with our x square root 3, and our 2x. So x is 20, so that means this is 20 square root 3 for the height of our triangle. The base of our triangle then is the full base, so that's the 40 feet that goes along the side of the fence. So if we multiply all of these together, that gives us 692.82 feet squared. And we will use this then to figure out the amount of reseeding that we need. Now, one of the questions was asking how many square feet of fencing will you need for the backyard, and that's just really around the outside 2 pieces because that's all that the fencing you're going to have. That gives us 80 feet of fencing that you will need. Now, for the amount of square feet of seed that we are going to need, that's where this purple number up here is coming in. And you could also see an additional question, like the painting question up above with our heart, that it might ask what or how many bags of seed we would need necessarily to fill that amount of space. So there could be another additional question that you might see on your homework.